Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. As Melody stepped into the house, her voice was tinged with surprise and a touch of annoyance. "Barney? What are you doing here?" she asked, her eyes narrowing as they landed on me at the kitchen table, clearly not expecting to find me home. Behind her, partially hidden, stood a tall, younger man, his posture stiff. My wife of 30 years, Melody, looked as striking as the day we met. Her chestnut hair fell in soft waves past her shoulders, and her professional outfit, a pristine white blouse paired with a sleek black skirt, showcased her elegance. The blouse, unbuttoned at the top, revealed a hint of cleavage, a subtle nod to her enduring confidence and allure. It reminded me, fleetingly, of why I had fallen for her all those years ago. Without addressing the absurdity of her question, I responded in a dry tone, "I live here." Her annoyance sharpened. "Obviously," she snapped. "But why are you home at 3:30 in the afternoon?" For a moment, memories flooded back, memories of the life we'd built together. I often told people I'd fallen for Melody the moment I laid eyes on her. She had been the administrative assistant during a business meeting I attended, and her mix of charm and professionalism captivated me instantly. By the end of that day, I had worked up the courage to ask her out. From there, our story had unfolded. The man behind her finally stepped into view, his sharp features betraying a flicker of unease. It was clear this situation wasn't going the way either of them had expected. "I might ask you the same question," I said coolly. "Why are you home an hour and a half early?" The tension in the room thickened, unspoken accusations filling the air. For nearly 3 decades, I had loved Melody without reservation. I had built a thriving insurance business and supported her climb from administrative assistant to head of HR. But in recent weeks, everything had changed. Her betrayal had been like a wrecking ball, shattering my trust in her. Still, I was determined to confront her with composure. The young man, sensing the growing hostility, stepped forward and extended his hand. "Mr. Caldwell," he said, his voice attempting confidence. "I'm Jacob Kaufman, a new attorney at Kellerman & Sons. I've been collaborating with Melody on some projects." I ignored his outstretched hand and kept my gaze locked on Melody. A low growl escaped my throat as I said, "I know exactly who and what you are." Melody flinched, a subtle crack in her polished demeanor. "Why does he call you Melody in our home?" I demanded. "You've always hated when people use your first name so casually. What's changed?" Her face flickered with alarm and embarrassment. Melody prided herself on being in control, always the one to anticipate and plan every detail. But whatever scenario she and this so-called attorney had prepared for, I wasn't following their script. Taking a measured breath, I broke the tension. "Why don't I fix us some drinks? We can talk in the living room." Melody requested her usual glass of wine, her voice quieter than normal. Kaufman hesitated before muttering something about bourbon or craft beer. I nodded and left the room to prepare the drinks, listening to their hurried whispers as soon as I turned away. When I returned, I handed Melody her preferred Merlot and placed a dirty glass of beer in front of Kaufman. Sitting down with my own bourbon, I raised my glass in a silent toast. Kaufman took a tentative sip, then grimaced. "This beer tastes strange," he remarked hesitantly. "It's Pabst Blue Ribbon," I said, amusement coloring my tone. His expression darkened, and Melody, noticing my smirk, snapped, "Isn't that the beer you always say is the worst thing you've ever tasted?" I chuckled, which only fueled her irritation. "You're such a jerk, Barney," she spat. "We came here to have a calm discussion, and all you've done is mock us." I met her gaze calmly. "You're right. Let's talk. I'm sure I'll learn some valuable lessons about being a loving, respectful husband." My sarcasm cut deep, and Melody seemed to shrink under its weight. Kaufman, emboldened by her silence, tried to interject. "Barney, it's Mr. Caldwell to you," I interrupted coldly. "Or perhaps Honorable Sir. Take your pick." His face flushed as I turned back to Melody. "So what is it you wanted to say?" Her frustration boiled over. Your behavior is disgusting. Stop this right now. Feigning contemplation, I replied, Do you really think my behavior is worse than yours has been these past 6 weeks? The color drained from her face, and Kaufman looked like he had forgotten how to breathe. Their plan was unraveling before them. Locking eyes with her, I delivered the final blow. What disgusts me more? The fact that you've let this man touch you, or the way you've treated me like a fool? A heavy silence fell over the room. Melody's composure shattered as the truth hung between us, undeniable and inescapable. In that moment, I knew their carefully crafted expectations had been utterly destroyed. Her eyes narrowed, and her voice dropped to a whisper as she asked, How could you possibly know? I have more allies in your workplace than you realize, I said evenly. 2 weeks ago, an anonymous letter arrived from one of your colleagues. It outlined your affair in detail and included 3 attachments, photos of you and him at a picnic in Middlewoods Park. The images showed you holding hands and kissing. Her face fell as she murmured, I'm sorry you found out this way. She paused, seemingly grasping for words, but I cut her off. Do you want a divorce? I asked bluntly. No, she replied, leaning forward on the edge of the couch, her elbows propped on her knees. Her tone grew desperate. I love you. I don't want a divorce. What Jacob and I have is just a fleeting distraction. She spoke quickly, almost frantically. He's new here, struggling to make friends in Connecticut. Once he settles in and meets someone else, this will end. I swear it's not serious. Her explanation left me cold. That's not enough for me, I said, my voice firm. When I married you, I believed we were committing to a monogamous, loving partnership. Now I see I was wrong. Divorce feels like the only option that aligns with my values. She began to plead. Barney, no. Please don't do this. I don't want a divorce. And deep down, I don't think you do either. This was a one-time mistake, a momentary lapse. It's over now. And it won't happen again. Her voice wavered, and then she continued. I was drawn to Jacob. I needed something exciting in my life, but I promise, it's done. I'll never stray again. I sipped my bourbon, allowing a heavy silence to settle before responding. Your promises mean nothing to me now. You've lied, and everyone knows it. You've shown yourself to be not only unfaithful, but shamelessly so. Her cheeks flushed with anger, but I pressed on. Why should I believe this is the first time? For all I know, you've been doing this for years. Her voice shook as she tried to reason with me. Barney, think about what we've built together. Kelly is married now. We're at a point where we can finally slow down and enjoy retirement. This thing with Jacob, it's nothing. It'll be forgotten soon enough. I rose from my seat and headed to the study, leaving my glass behind. When I returned, I found the two of them huddled on the couch, whispering as if conspiring. Jacob looked up hesitantly and asked, May I say something? Go ahead, I replied, my tone dripping with disdain. He took a deep breath before starting. Melody is right. This is nothing more than a brief affair. I deeply regret involving a married woman, and it's not something I've ever done before. But we connected. She's an extraordinary person. He added, I understand why you're considering divorce, but think about it carefully. You've spent decades together. Is it really worth ending everything over this? Jacob then pivoted, his tone turning calculating. Melody also mentioned the prenuptial agreement her father made you sign. She was worried it could strip her of assets in a divorce, but as a lawyer I can assure you that a document like that, after nearly 30 years, won't hold up in court. Laws change, and language becomes outdated. Any competent attorney could render it useless. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly at his audacity. Turning to Melody, I asked, Why would you trust legal advice from a corporate lawyer who barely scraped through one of the worst law schools in the country? Jacob began to protest. How do you... But I cut him off. One of my guiding principles is to always know my enemy. I shifted my gaze back to Melody. What's your plan now? I asked icily. She hesitated before speaking. Jacob and I are going to spend the weekend together. I'll stay at his apartment tonight, and tomorrow we'll go to New York. I'll be back by Sunday evening. Her boldness was staggering. The weight of her betrayal hit me like a blow. So, not only have you shared your body with him, but now you're sharing our New York tradition? Those weekends were sacred, filled with concerts, Broadway shows, and memories we built together. You've destroyed all of it. She tried to respond, but her words didn't reach me. My mind was screaming for closure, an end to this torment. Turning to Jacob, I asked coldly, "Does your wife mind that you're sleeping with mine?" "Barney, stop," Melody interjected. "Jacob is a widower. His wife died of cancer years ago." Even Jacob flinched at her words, guilt etched across his face. I smirked. "Unlike you," I said to her. Then, turning to him, I asked, "Is that true? Are you a widower?" Jacob hesitated before stammering, "Yes." I pulled out a folder from my bag and began reading aloud. Dr. Cynthia Kaufman, emergency surgeon at St. John's Ascension Hospital, Detroit. Husband, Jacob. Daughters, Katie, 11, and Lacey, 9. She'll be relocating to Hartford soon to join her husband after their school year ends. Melody's face turned pale. "You lied to me," she whispered. I couldn't contain my laughter. A liar deceived by another liar. What poetic justice! Jacob reached for Melody's hand, but I no longer cared. "Melody, I'm sorry," Jacob said, rising to his feet. "Let's go to my place and talk this through. We'll spend the weekend in New York and figure out what's next. Afterward, you can go back to being a wife, and I'll prepare for my family to join me." Melody hesitated before standing and taking his hand. She looked at me one last time. "After this weekend, I swear it'll be over." I planned to return home on Sunday, prepared to resume the role of the devoted wife I had always been. When I looked into Melody's eyes, it felt like an eternity passed. Her gaze held steady, searching, as if trying to uncover truths I wasn't ready to voice. I wondered if she could sense how the cracks in my heart were splintering further, threatening to break me completely. For a while I stayed silent, letting them indulge in their fantasy, weaving a narrative where their relationship wouldn't unravel my life. But the time for silence had passed. Now it was my turn. "Please sit down," I said, my tone measured but firm. "I need about 30 minutes to explain the changes ahead." They hesitated, exchanging uncertain glances before turning back to me. Reading their reluctance, I added sharply, "It's the least you can do." Reluctantly, they obeyed. I reached for the TV remote, pressing a few buttons. "I've set up a couple of Zoom calls," I said, my voice calm as the screen flickered to life. Months of pandemic-era virtual meetings had made me an expert at this. When the video connected, I addressed the individuals on the call. "Peter, Lou, can you hear me?" Peter responded quickly. "We're here, Barney." Turning to Melody, I continued. "You already know Peter, our family attorney. Allow me to introduce his colleague, Lou Baird, who is now handling my divorce." Her face froze in shock, the weight of my words sinking in. I gestured toward the screen. "Gentlemen, the floor is yours." Lou's voice rang out with precision. "Mrs. Caldwell, I am representing your husband in these proceedings. Divorce papers were officially filed this morning. I strongly recommend you consult an attorney to review them. You have until Monday to respond. Should we not hear from your legal counsel, the papers will be served directly." He didn't falter as he continued. "The filing cites infidelity as the grounds for divorce, supported by a private investigator's findings. The report contains comprehensive evidence, audio recordings, video surveillance, and telecommunications, documenting your affair with Mr. Kaufman." I placed a thick folder on the coffee table, the sound punctuating Lou's words and making both Melody and her lover flinch. "Here is a copy of the divorce filing and the investigator's report," I said, my tone unyielding. As Jacob's hand moved toward the folder, Melody's focus returned to the screen, her expression pale. Lou resumed his explanation. "Per the terms of the prenuptial agreement, which has been updated and signed multiple times over the past 30 years, all stipulations will be strictly enforced. Its validity is unquestionable. Additionally, the Caldwell Brokerage Board has unanimously decided to relieve you of all corporate responsibilities. You are required to return any company property, including the car, within 1 week. Corporate credit cards are already deactivated, and your phone service will end in 7 days." Melody's expression shifted from pale to ashen as Lou detailed more changes. Your joint credit cards and club memberships have been canceled. Joint accounts have been frozen. Under the terms of the prenup, Mr. Caldwell retains the house and 80% of all shared assets. Expedited eviction will be requested, and we will argue that your co-owned property with Mr. Kaufman is suitable for relocation. No spousal or child support will be provided. Lou paused. Anything you'd like to add, Barney? That covers everything, I replied, leaning back. The screen went dark, leaving the room heavy with tension. Melody shot to her feet, panic and fury bubbling over. Wait! I need them back! I have questions! I couldn't suppress a bitter laugh. You'll need your own lawyer for that, Melody. Her rage boiled over. You're a bastard, she spat, trembling with fury. I'll ruin you. I turned to Jacob, smirking. Care to explain how she plans to do that, counselor? His silence spoke volumes. Melody collapsed onto the couch, a mix of anger and despair consuming her. Calmly, I picked up the remote again and initiated another call. Jake, can you hear me? The screen flickered to life. Loud and clear, Barney, came the response. But I'm in between calls, so make it quick. Jacob Kaufman, I said, my voice razor sharp. You're fired. Your personal belongings will be boxed and left in the lobby. If they aren't claimed within 24 hours, they'll be disposed of. No recommendation letters will be issued. I shifted my focus back to Melody. Your position at Hartford is terminated. However, we are offering a transfer to Albany. Should you decline, your employment will end entirely. You have 1 week to decide. The call ended, leaving Melody visibly shattered, her tears flowing freely. Jacob, seething with anger, stayed silent. Once more, I lifted the remote, initiating a third call. Dr. Kaufman, are you there? I asked as the screen connected. Both Melody and Jacob stiffened as a striking blonde appeared on the screen. Her expression was cold and unyielding. Jacob, she said icily. It's Cynthia. I've filed for divorce. Expect the papers soon. The children and I will be staying in Michigan. Jacob started to plead, but she cut him off. This is the third time your recklessness has cost you everything. After seeing the investigator's report, I dug deeper. Mrs. Caldwell, are you familiar with someone named Alice Packer? The screen froze on Cynthia's unwavering glare, the room descending into stunned silence. How about Tori Jones or Candy Phillips? Cynthia taunted, her voice laced with exaggerated mockery. Melody remained silent, her face a mask of restraint, which only made Cynthia laugh louder. Oh, don't bother answering, that was rhetorical. I already know they're your colleagues. Did you catch wind of Jacob's little escapades with both of them? Shocking, right? But then again, it shouldn't be. You were just another notch on his belt. So now tell me where to send your things, Jacob. You're officially out of this house. As the screen faded to black, Jacob erupted in fury. I swear I'll kill you, you miserable bastard, he roared, staggering to his feet. Remaining calm, I reached beneath the armchair cushion and retrieved my .45 Colt, aiming it directly at him. He froze mid-step, his face blanching as though he might pass out. His reaction was everything I'd hoped for. The irony wasn't lost on me. He lies, cheats, and yet somehow I'm the one who needs therapy? Smirking, I continued. Funny thing, after sharing our story with Dr. Waters, she asked me something that stuck. Have you ever heard the saying, love is blind? That hit me like a freight train. I realized I'd loved you so blindly that without that anonymous letter, I'd never have seen your betrayal. My love was so all-encompassing that you appeared flawless to me, perfect. But now, I hope you understand this. No one will ever love you as completely as I did. Melody sat on the couch, her arms wrapped around her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. I added, Dr. Waters thinks I should keep seeing her. Talking to someone you trust can be life-saving after a betrayal like this. I never thought someone I cherish so deeply could humiliate me like this. But here's the thing. I'll endure the shame, the heartache, and I'll survive you. Dr. Waters wasn't thrilled about my plans for today, though. She's not a fan of revenge, but she admitted the first 3 Zoom calls were justified. You earned those. She did try to stop me from going through with this 4th call, though. Said it might set me back in my progress. Maybe she's right. It'll probably hurt me more than it helps, but honestly, I don't care, because while this might sting for me, It's going to devastate you. Melody's body stiffened as I reached for the remote again, her expression clouded with dread. I aimed it at the television and pressed play. All eyes turned to the screen, and the moment a familiar face appeared, Melody let out a strangled groan. "No, please, no," she whimpered. "I love you, Dad." Kelly's voice rang out. "I love you too, sweetheart," I replied, not looking away from Melody. "Why?" Melody screamed, her voice cracking with anguish. "Why would you do this to me?" Kelly's tone hardened. "Mom, I heard everything. I heard what you and your idiotic boyfriend discussed over the past hour. I know exactly what you've done, and what you're planning." "You make me sick, Mom," Kelly continued. "Sweetheart, please," Melody pleaded, her voice trembling. "You don't understand. It's not that simple." "Not that simple," Kelly shot back. "I'm 26, married, and living a stable, happy life. This isn't complicated. It's disgusting, selfish, a complete disgrace." Melody's breathing grew uneven. "Kelly, please listen. I've been so lonely since you left. I've missed you so much. It's like I've been wandering in a fog." "So now it's my fault?" Kelly's voice dripped with disbelief. "You're really blaming me for your lies, your betrayal, for the pain you caused Dad. You're unbelievable." Melody dissolved into louder sobs. "Kelly, please don't shut me out like this. I'll come to Boston this weekend and we can talk. I need to see you." "That's not happening," Kelly said firmly. "First, because you'll be in New York with your broke, jobless, recently divorced boyfriend. Don't bother denying it. Second, Scott and I are hosting a gathering with family and close friends. A space where you don't belong." "What gathering?" Melody stammered, her voice cracking. "Kelly, please tell me. I'm your mother." "That's none of your business," Kelly snapped. "But since you're so desperate to know, I'll tell you. I'm 3 months pregnant. We're expecting a baby girl in February. And you're not invited." Melody's cries grew frantic. "Kelly Ann, you can't do this. I'm your mother. I demand to be part of this." "Not a chance," Kelly replied icily. "I want my celebration filled with love and joy, not your lies and deceit. Goodbye, Mom." The screen flickered off for the final time. As Melody crumpled on the couch, her sobs shaking her body, I stood up, tucking the gun into my waistband. "I'm heading out for dinner. Be gone by the time I get back." Turning to Melody, I added, "Take your clothes and anything essential. You're not stepping foot in this house again until the divorce is finalized. That should take about a week." I glanced at her boyfriend. "You've seen what I'm capable of. You've got 3 days to leave the state. If you're still here by Monday, I'll make sure you regret it in ways you can't imagine." As I opened the door, I cast one last look at the shattered pair. "Enjoy your weekend in New York. The weather's supposed to be lovely." And with that, I walked out. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.